Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Roberts. I have been these last several months a candidate for the Board of Education here in Winstead, for a Board of Education that is effective, efficient, affordable, and above all, accountable to you. Yesterday, you elected me to that board. I am here to thank you for your support. I am here to thank you for your votes. I am here to thank you for voting me onto the Board of Education. I am sensible of the great trust that you have placed in my hands, and I am humbled that you have chosen to do so, knowing full well as you do that my voice will be outweighed and outvoted by a noisy majority that does not share my values and which does not share, I believe, your values. Throughout this campaign, I have stressed transparency, results, accountability. I have demanded a government that will get the people's business done, that will get it done right, that will get it done on time, that will get it done under budget. I have demanded a government that will govern in the true interests of the community, not against those interests. I have demanded a government that will not seek to overturn the wishes and votes of the electorate. These will remain my chief concerns going forward. My primary role as minority member on the Board of Education will be to ask questions, to ask the tough questions that have been unasked too long, and to demand answers that are true, complete, accurate, and delivered on a timely basis. My role will be to deliver this information to you, the community. I will be your eyes and your ears. I will be your local newspaper when it comes to these matters. My role will be to persuade each member of the Board of Education to fully examine the ramifications of their actions and inactions, to justify those actions, and to take personal responsibility for those actions. We must, ladies and gentlemen, be able to tell you where your money is going, how much of your money we are spending, what we are spending it on, whether it works, whether we are getting value, whether we are getting results. Before we spend, we must provide an audit. As we spend, we must adhere to that. I beg your pardon. Before we spend, we must provide a budget. As we spend, we must adhere to that budget. And once we have spent, we must provide an audit. Each must be clear, accurate, comprehensible, and again, delivered on a timely basis. This has not been the past history of this board. In these tough times, when people cannot afford a tax raise, in times when the taxpayers are thoroughly alienated from this Board of Education, we must recognize that if we are to secure more monies to invest in the schools, we must fund them from internal efficiencies, from cost savings. There are many opportunities within the system as we have it to fund cost savings. We must realize those cost savings if we are to grow this system. We must prioritize within the Board of Education, within the schools, as within all organizations. Needs outstrip available resources. We must channel our investment dollars into programs that actually work. We must channel investment dollars, we must focus our investment dollars on areas where they will have the most benefit to the most people. We cannot be all things to all people. There isn't enough money. By doing this, and quite frankly only by doing this, can we rebuild our brand. Only by doing this can we rebuild our credibility. Only by doing this can we regain the respect and trust of this community. And it will only be by regaining the respect and trust of this community that this community will provide this board with more hard cash. Let there be no doubt, ladies and gentlemen, if we do regain their trust, there will be money available for the kids. There will be money available for the schools. If we do not regain the trust, that spigot will dry up. 2 days ago, I called publicly for the resignation or the ouster of Board of Ed Chairman Susan Hofnagel. I did this because she lied to our community. She sent a letter to the newspapers in which she stated in writing that there were no audit issues. This is untrue, ladies and gentlemen. This is an untruth, and we call an untruth a lie. George Clausen may disagree with me. He may not call it a lie, but I call it a lie, and I believe you call it a lie too. For in truth, there is no audit. The auditors have informed us in writing this week that they do not have any information to audit. The absence of an audit is the issue with respect to the audit, Ms. Hofnagel. To suggest otherwise is irresponsible. It is a lie. So I called for her ouster. That obviously did not happen. The community went to the polls and re-elected Ms. Hofnagel to the Board of Education. This is a decision which, quite frankly, baffles me, but which I am duty-bound to respect. I believe passionately in the democratic process, a process by which you, the community, choose your representatives, charge them with doing the job, hold them accountable, and either re-elect them or get rid of them. This democratic process, which I hold in such high regard, does of course depend on the community having full, complete, and accurate information. We cannot hold our representatives to account if we do not know what they have done. We cannot hold our representatives to account if we do not know what they have spent. We cannot hold our representatives to account if we do not know that they have spent wisely. But putting that aside, the community did re-elect Susan Hofnagel. And on that basis, I will accord her the respect that is owed to all public servants who are selflessly and effectively doing the public's business. I will give her the benefit of the doubt in the hope that she will be selflessly and effectively doing the people's business. Because if she does not, ladies and gentlemen, if she cannot stick to these simple standards, if she lies to this community, I will once again call for her ouster. I will call for it loudly. I will call for it repeatedly. And if necessary, I will call for it rudely. And the same goes for every other member of the Board of Education, ladies and gentlemen. Because the public business is a serious business. It is not a game that can be played flouting the rules. It is not a piece of gossip to be joked about around a water cooler. The public business is a serious business, and any public servant who does not recognize that, who cannot live with that, deserves to go. There are serious issues that we face as a board at this point in time. Real issues that we must act decisively to solve. I will assume that the first of those issues, the MBR, is off the table. The new Board of Selectmen has made it fairly clear, pretty clear, that they intend to cave to the wholly illegitimate demands of this board and pay them an additional $1.3 million. This Board of Education is going to be awash with cash, your taxpayer dollars. Will this money be spent wisely? Will we see our students with iPads? Will we see Wi-Fi in the schools? I would dearly love to think so, but I'm not sure that I have that degree of confidence. It seems more likely that the money will be wasted, poured down the toilets of empty schoolrooms, contributed to the pays of administrators. The MBR issue has been solved, ladies and gentlemen. It has been taken off the table, and with it, I assume, the lawsuit will be taken off the table. But the result is most unsatisfactory. The key issue is clearly the audit. That is the most pressing issue facing our board, the most pressing issue facing our community. We must get our arms around the audit. We must be willing and able to provide the auditors with all of the information they need. That has not been the case up till now. We must be able to demonstrate how much money we spent. We must be able to demonstrate what we spent it on. We must be able to demonstrate that we spent it wisely. We must be able to demonstrate that we spent grant funds within the guidelines for which they were supposed to be spent. And we must be able to demonstrate that we have all of the appropriate records to substantiate this. This has not, so far, been the case. The absence of an audit 11 months after its due date is unacceptable. We need to get this done. And we should be talking not about an audit, but about 2 audits. In 6 weeks' time, on December 31st, 2011, we will be required to submit 2 audits, not just 1. We will be required to submit clean, unqualified audits for for 2009-10 and 2010-11. Good luck, ladies and gentlemen. Good luck with this. Hinsdale. I don't know why we need to be talking about Hinsdale, quite frankly. This is something that should have been dealt with back in August. It's a matter of insurance, of FEMA, of getting it done and moving on. At this point in time, I understand that a certain amount of remediation has been taken. The materials have been cleaned, etc., etc. I am not aware of any new air testing, any new examination to determine whether mold has spread or continues to be in place. I assume that will happen in due course. But the real issue, ladies and gentlemen, is not whether there is mold in Hinsdale at this point in time. The real issue is why action wasn't taken back in August to deal with this. The real issue is why did we wait till yesterday to decide to fix the gym floor? This board needs to understand that it needs to react in real time to real problems. Our community's assets must be protected. Our community's children and their teachers and the staff, the health and safety of these people need to be assured. This board needs to take action, whether it's a matter of a building, whether it's a matter of health and safety, or whether it's a matter of educational policy. We need to take action. We can't simply sit around and talk and worry that the evil town was going to steal our money. This is not government. This is procrastination. School closing. We all know, we have argued for many months now, that there is surplus space in our schools. That were we to close a school, there would still be surplus space in our schools. Jim DeVita, throughout the campaign, has said loudly and repeatedly, it's not that we won't close a school, it's that we can't decide which school to close. This board needs to make that decision, needs to make it happen, needs to give the town ample time to decide what to do with the building that will be turned over to them. Needs to plan how this will all take place to make sure that it takes place seamlessly. It needs to happen. And finally, there is the Gilbert Partnership. Moving grades 7th and 8th to Gilbert was the one bright spot in this board's last 2 years. It has, by all accounts, been a magnificent success. The staff at Gilbert have moved heaven and earth to make it that success. The pupils at Gilbert have moved heaven and earth to make it that success. And by and large, the parents are happy with the result. This is the tangible proof that when reasonable people sit in a room and hash it out, great things can happen. We must now build upon that success. We must now continue to move towards a situation in which our two school systems will behave, will cost, and will function as if they were one. Because that is the goal, ladies and gentlemen. It does not matter how many school systems we have, as long as they behave as one, as long as we can prioritize funding to where funding needs to go without worrying whether it's in a Gilbert bucket or a public schools bucket. We need to be able to share costs. We need to be able to cut costs. We need to function as one system. We need to build upon the successes of this current year to achieve that. There are those on this board who have been making noises that they are not so keen on this partnership, that they would like to bring back 7th and 8th grades to the public system. These are retrograde steps, ladies and gentlemen. These are taking us back into the bad old days. We need to nip these things in the bud. Beyond the scope of the Board of Education, last night's results obviously presage enormous changes in our community. Changes which I fear bode ill. I would like to believe, I hope, that the new Board of Selectmen, the new regime, will act responsibly, will do the right thing, that they will take all haste to get our fiscal house in order, that they will do whatever it takes to make this town attractive to new investment. They will bring in new businesses and new residents. I hope that is the case, but I fear otherwise. The decision to cave to the Board of Education to produce an extra $1.3 million seems case in point. It is rife with risk. Where will this $1.3 million come from, ladies and gentlemen? It's definitely coming from the taxpayers, one way or another. The Democrats have suggested that they will empty the fund balance. This is a most imprudent step. This brings us to the very edge of bankruptcy, the edge of the abyss. As a practical matter, we don't know what's actually in the fund balance. You voted back in May to put a little over $700,000 in. And there was at one point more money in there. Now we know, based on the Board of Education's preliminary numbers for 09-10, numbers which they have revised time after time after time, numbers which the auditors cannot audit, that in their estimation they overspent by somewhere between $350,000 and $425,000. That's coming out of the fund balance. We have not been able to document whether the extent of the overspending is limited to $425,000. We have no information at all as to whether more money came out of the fund balance in 2010-11, and we have no information at all, no credible information that is, as to whether more money is coming out of the fund balance this year. We don't know what's in the fund balance, ladies and gentlemen. We don't know whether it's there to be emptied to pay $1.3 million, which means there will be a supplemental tax. These are the words that no one wants to hear. The Democrats have gone out of their way to say, no, there will be no supplemental tax. But without knowing what's in the fund balance, there will have to be a supplemental tax. This will further enrage the taxpayers who really cannot afford more taxes, particularly taxes for something which they deem not to be in the best interests of this community. And enraging the taxpayers of this town will do nothing to move our community forward. It will simply guarantee years of budget mayhem. We will go back to the bad old years of 8, 9, 10 referendums to get a budget passed. We have been blocked from the borrowing markets for many months now. That has primarily been because we have no audit, which remains the case. If the miraculous occurs, if within the next 6 weeks we get not one but 2 clean, unqualified audits, we will likely still be blocked from the borrowing markets. Lenders do not like towns that take as a policy steps that enrage their taxpayers. Lenders do not like towns that take actions as a matter of policy that empty out their fund balance. Lenders look to the taxpayer's willingness to pay tax. They look to a town's fund balance as a source of repayment. Furthermore, if we revisit the plans to sell town assets at pennies on the dollar, that will further enrage our creditors. If they cannot rely on our taxpayers and they cannot rely on our fund balance, they must rely in the final analysis on our assets. If we have given those assets away cheap to friends and family instead of reserving them for our creditors, there will be no more borrowing. No access to borrowing for roads, no access to borrowing for infrastructure, no access for borrowing for schools or buildings or any other seed money for the economic revitalization of our town. I paint a bleak picture. I hope that the community knows something that I don't. I hope that their choices yesterday were informed by knowledge that I do not possess, that all will become well with Winsted. I hope that I am wrong. I look forward on this TV program to eating crow, lots and lots and lots of crow, because I am wrong, because the town has been turned around. I sincerely hope that that is the case, ladies and gentlemen. I really do. But somehow I think that's a long way away, if it ever happens, under the current administration's watch. I respect this community's choice. I respect this community's right to choose. That doesn't mean to say I have to like the result. Which brings me to my last topic. Yesterday we saw voter turnout decline once again. This is a distressing thing, ladies and gentlemen. I am not going to sit here and tell you that a higher turnout would have changed the outcome. I have no idea whether it would or wouldn't have. What I am going to suggest, however, is that a higher turnout would mean that more people have skin in the game. A higher turnout would have ensured that more people were involved, had a motive to stay involved, had a reason to hold their government accountable. If government knows that people are looking over their shoulder, they are more likely to do the right thing. If we are ever to turn around this town, whether it be under the watch of Democrats like Mayor Welcome, whether it be under the watch of Democrats like James Roberts, or whether it be under the watch of Republicans like Ken Fracasso, it will only happen if the town is solidly behind it, if the public can truly coalesce around a plan of action. That takes voter participation. It takes getting involved, understanding the issues, coming to agreement. Simply not showing up will not do it. It is my intention to continue these shows beyond election season. I can't promise they'll be weekly, they will probably be bi-weekly. I will focus both on issues that are of interest to the Board of Education, as well as a broader range of interests relative, or relating I should say, to the governance of Winstead as a whole. In addition, I will be retaining my Facebook presence, which will facilitate a more dynamic discussion of these themes. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for your support. I would like to thank you for your vote. I would like to thank you for electing me to the Board of Education. My goal, as is yours, is very simple. We need schools and we need a government that is effective, efficient, affordable, and above all, accountable to you. We all know what needs to be done to reach that goal, ladies and gentlemen. My job is to persuade the Board of Education to do it, to do the right thing. So for those of you who voted for me, wish me luck. For those of you who voted for me, wish us all luck. Because I have a funny feeling that we're going to need a whole lot of luck around here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.